It's a great pleasure to see everyone today. Thank you for coming out to hear Krishna Katha and to chant Hare Krishna. This is kind of Silicon Valley. We're within a network of temples around the world by the thousands that were established especially for the practice of bhakti yoga. And this is comprised of 9 methods, beginning with hearing and chanting. And I first offer my respectful obeisances to the founder Acharya, my spiritual master, His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, who is seated on the ornate seat called the Vyasasana as a representative of what we call the Sampradaya, or a line of teachers who have passed down Krishna's message from the time of the creation of the material world. When faithfully passed on by those who are in the practice itself and who are sincerely cultivating Krishna consciousness, the words of those who are speaking and representing the Sampradaya are potent in that they can transform the heart. And regarding the process of hearing, this is the primary means for advancing in spiritual practice. Sound is the first vibration which is creative in this world. From it expand all other varieties and elements of the world. Modern physicists describe how the world is composed of vibrational forces. It's as if there's a tapestry of sound threads throughout the universe. And the ancient Vedas, which are the books of knowledge that show us how to comport ourselves in this world, that one can be liberated by sound, or one can be covered by sound. Anavritti shabdat. Shabdat means hearing, the sound vibration. And anavritti means uncovered. One can purify the consciousness by sound vibration. As the greatest of all modern teachers of bhakti yoga, who is a noted incarnation of Krishna, or Krishna himself, who came to teach the message of bhakti yoga in the modern age, where people are busy, to say the least. Cheto darpana marjanam was his statement, and that is that your consciousness, or your cheta, can become cleansed by hearing a divine vibration, especially the divine names of God, when repeated and listened to in the assembly of those who are aware of the fact that God is personal, not impersonal. Such a vibration cleanses the heart, and he gives this metaphor of a mirror. And when the mirror is clouded, or the mirror is dusty or dirty, one cannot see oneself. He compares our consciousness to a mirror. And that by chanting the names of God sincerely means with an understanding that we are eternally related to God as servants, then the mind and heart become purified. And one can see things as they are. We can see ourselves the way we are. In the Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, which gives the account of Krishna's activities when he came here to this world, Kṛṣṇa means the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And some might say, well, how could he come to the material world? Well, what would prevent him from coming to the material world? We would reply, because if he's the Supreme and he's the creator of everything, he can move about as he likes. But he's not subjected to the laws of nature the way others are. An example that my spiritual master, Srila Prabhupada, used to give us, sometimes a governor will go into the prison to inspect it, to see how it's being taken care of. And the prisoners might see the governor walk through and think, oh, he's in prison too. But not the same way you are, because he's going to walk out. Whereas the prisoners are subjected to the laws of the state. They've been sentenced to stay for a certain amount of time. So when Krishna comes to the world, he displays his activities to attract our minds. And those activities are recorded in the Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam. And in the Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, there's a preamble, the opening scene. There are nested stories throughout the Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, and the hearing of which purifies the mind, because it deals with all the psychological anomalies that we may encounter while living in this world that cause us misery. There were sages gathered at a forest named ācāryas. It is said to be dead center, middle of the universe. It's a place where sages would go for harmonic convergence and to cultivate spiritual knowledge. And they had attempted on their own to perform various kinds of rituals that would elevate them in this world to heaven and so forth. But then, by very good fortune, they met a pure devotee of Kṛṣṇa named Sutta Goswami, who had recently heard the message of the Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam in another assembly on the bank of the Ganges, where the king Parikshit had been camped out, trying to figure out what to do in the last 7 days of his life, because he had been cursed to die in 7 days. After hearing from Shukadeva Goswami, who had instructed the king for 7 days, Sutta Goswami then came to the Naimisharanya forest, and they appointed him as the main speaker. And they recognized that he was more advanced than they were. And the first instructions he gave to the sages there of how to attain the ultimate goal of life was about hearing. He said, Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam swakata Kṛṣṇa, that you should hear talks about the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Kṛṣṇa. Punya Shravana Kirtana. He said, by that hearing, you'll get inner wealth. It's the only kind there that really counts, because the other wealth that we have will dissipate one way or another, in case you haven't noticed. Punya Shravana Kirtana. And how does it work? Hridyantaksto bhadrani. It means because God's not just in his spiritual abode, but he's also within everyone's heart. And he so much appreciates the person who listens to the Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam that he'll help. Vidhunoti suritsatam. As a well-wisher of each one of us, he helps to purify us of any obstacles that may be there within our hearts, just by listening, just by hearing of his pastimes. Now, there are many schools of thought, ways in which people approach the world. Charvak Muni is known as the ancient philosopher of materialism, and he said, beg, borrow, steal, but get ghee. Because as a rare commodity at that time, he was indicating that if you can just get enough ghee and cook things in ghee, don't worry about whether you beg for it, you borrow it, or you steal it from someone else. The main point is to get it. In other words, try to arrange your life so you can become happy at any cost, because this is the last life. And you only have one chance. And I believe nowadays his philosophy has survived, and there's an acronym for that. OL, YOLO. You only live once, YOLO. That went around when I was in school also. I mean, in high school, YOLO, you only live once, which was a kind of battle cry to do whatever you want. Because who cares about the consequences? There are no consequences. This is short-sighted, to say the least. Every parent in the world could tell their children, it doesn't matter what you do. Even if it doesn't feel like it doesn't matter when you're young, there are consequences. And the Bhagavad-gītā, in the Bhagavad-gītā, Kṛṣṇa goes on to explain there are subtle effects that come about from everything that we do. Everything that we hear, all the associates that we have and so forth. They affect us in such a way that they determine our future. And where we end up is dependent on what we're doing right now. That's Self-Help 101. But Kṛṣṇa describes the subtleties of these as karma. And therefore there are other philosophers who try to work within that subtle framework. And there are rituals through which one might stay in the upper crust of the material world. Otherwise known as karma kanda. There are special rituals and mantras that one may chant and enact in order to work the system of the material world and elevate oneself to a better condition of life. Most people are trying to elevate themselves to a better condition of life because we'd like to be comfortable, as comfortable as possible. And beyond that, there are those who think about the nature of the material world. They're called jnanis. They deconstruct it into the smallest of elements, and they categorize all the elements to try to see the workings of the material world. And many of these philosophers come to a conclusion that the ultimate goal of life is to realize our oneness with the Supreme. And they end up at a conclusion where there is no us, that the idea of us now is illusory. It's a concocted personhood that we have now. And they endeavor for a liberation, which the Bhagavatam would call so-called liberation, where they could become one with the Supreme. And then there's the Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam and the Bhagavad-gītā, in which Kṛṣṇa describes that there's an ultimate source to everything, and it's Him. He's the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and from Him all emanations come, including this material world, including the multitude of living beings, conscious living entities, ourselves included, and all other living things. But to speak of the spiritual world, which is categorically different from the material world, it's non-mechanical, it's all conscious. And so the teachings of the Bhagavad-gītā and the Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam bring us to a means by which we can achieve all the objectives of life. The ultimate objective, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, was to reawaken our dormant love for Krishna. When one achieves that, one has achieved the topmost goal of life. There are other needs we may have, according to Maslow's pyramid of needs, where he talks about shelter and some sense of community, and at the top he has self-actualization. The psychologist Carl Jung spoke about what he called the needs for to individuate. And that is to come to understand oneself as a person. And to know one's personhood beyond what he called the shadow personality that we have, that is our imaginary personality. For instance, if you interview somebody on Latham Street, if we sent one of us out to do interviews right now, don't worry, I won't do it. And you ask people, who are you? They may give you a superficial answer according to the Bhagavad-gītā. Someone might say, I'm a man, I'm an American, I'm 32 years old. To which we would say, you're incorrect. And they'd be very surprised. Because what are you talking about? How do you know? We know because, according to the Bhagavad-gītā, we're not this temporary identity of the body, which comes and goes. It's just a frame made out of matter. We're only occupying this frame for a short amount of time. And as far as being a certain age, someone says, I'm 32 years old. If you ask somebody, how old are you? They say 32 years old. And you say, you are incorrect. What are you talking about? I can show you on my driver's license. But you're ageless, says Kṛṣṇa in the Bhagavad-gītā. As you were never born and you'll never die. You're only occupying a temporary body that has a beginning and an end, and you're only measuring that age. If you asked a cat, who are you? He might curl up and purr and say, well, I'm a cat. Please love me. Give me something to eat. And we say, sir, you are incorrect. You are not a cat. You're a soul within a cat body. And in a short amount of time, as cats only live for about 15 years, you can check ChatGPT. Where will that soul be? In another body. So understanding all these points, those who want to achieve the ultimate goal of life, says Kṛṣṇa in the Bhagavad-gītā, can take to the path that will satisfy the soul and liberate one from the cycle of birth and death and the misconception of being something that you're not, as the psychologist Carl Jung called the shadow self. Now, what's special about Bhakti Yoga? This is mentioned by the main teacher of Bhakti Yoga, Rupa Goswami, in his book Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. He speaks about how those who take up the practice of Bhakti Yoga as the means for spiritual advancement feel so satisfied that they don't seek liberation. Liberation means I'm suffering because I'm subjected to the changes of this world, not the least of which is the changes of this body, which confound us constantly. But to speak of the final change, when we have to leave the body, it seems a little, well, it's always a little abrupt for the most part, and it can ruin your whole day. In fact, nothing ruins your whole day as much as being told you have to leave your body. So why would somebody who's taken to the path of bhakti not need to find escape from this suffering condition in the material world? What is it about bhakti? Well, Rupa Goswami says there's 3 features that you get from practicing this form of spirituality that you don't get anywhere else. One is service, he says. When you serve, potency of service and the impetus to serve comes by serving somebody else who has senses. Because if you serve the air, there may not be much reciprocation, nor would you feel very useful, because the air doesn't have senses, and the air can't reciprocate. On the other hand, if you serve somebody who does have senses, and you notice that their senses are satisfied, and they are pleased with your service, then you might feel more useful. Yes or no? Just say yes. Thank you. So, in the philosophy of Krishna consciousness, Krishna says, I'm the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and you can serve me. Many people we serve are hard to please. Yes or no? Say yes. Take your boss, for instance. I won't bring that up. Take your family members, for instance. I won't bring that up either. Even pets sometimes, except for maybe dogs. Hard to please their senses. As their senses are limited, and they may get a temporary satisfaction from the service you give them, and then they'll get old. That's the problem with sense gratification. It gets old. That's what Kṛṣṇa says in the Bhagavad-gītā, Yehi samsparshaja bhoga tukha yonayevate adyantavanta konteya na teshu ramate buddha. He says, stuff gets old in this world. You ever listen to a song, it's the greatest song you ever heard, then you never want to hear it again? You ever get on a diet and say, this is the best food I ever ate, and then a week later, you say, I don't want to see this ever again? Did you ever come close to somebody and say, this is the best person who ever lived? And then later on, your friends say, what happened? You say, I hate that guy. It's a problem with service in the material world. People don't appreciate it as much as they could. And it gets old fast, whatever you give people here. Even if you serve them by helping to heal them, they'll get sick again. If you feed them, they'll get hungry again. So in the Bhagavad-gītā, Kṛṣṇa says, if you want to feel satisfaction through service, bhoktaram yakatapasam, serve me, because I will accept your service. That's a huge advantage. And what kind of service will he accept? Whatever you sincerely offer. Even if it's imperfect, he'll offer it. He'll take it. Last night, we were treated to a drama. A live drama. And one of my favorite parts of the play last night was about Lord Ramachandra. What is the name of the character? Shabari. And when Ram came and Shabari was offering fruits to him, she didn't know the etiquette, so she was tasting them first. And, oh, that one's good, you can take it. And it brought tears to my eyes because I was, partly the setup of the scene and the acting was so good. And it made it real for me how Krishna will take whatever we sincerely offer, even if we do it incorrectly. So this alignment in service is perfectly achieved when we serve Krishna. And that's one of the main tenets of the bhakti yoga process. In fact, in the Bhagavad-gītā, Krishna says, Yat koroshi adashnoshi yas juhoshi dadasi yat yat tapasyasi kontyat tat kurushvad manarpanam. Whatever you do, whatever you eat, whatever you offer, give away, whatever sacrifices you perform, do those for me. Not only will I accept them gladly, but you'll be satisfied by that offering. Yajñartat kamano natra loko yam karma bandhana tadartam karma konteya mukta sangha samachara. He says, just by this mood of serving, using whatever you have in your life, your car, your house, your body, your family, your money, which will diminish anyway unless you spend it for Krishna, If you offer it to Krishna, then you'll feel happy and satisfied. If you try to keep it, you'll be in agony. Trying to protect it's very difficult. I once did an inventory of how many kinds of insurance there are in this world. There's a lot. It's more than 20 that any person who lives in Silicon Valley could legitimately apply for. And no one would say, oh, that's too much. They'd say, oh yeah, I didn't think of that either. Because everything's tenuous here. But if you're using it for Krishna and you offer to Krishna in service, then you'll feel happy. Just try to find somebody who uses everything that he or she has in Krishna's service, and you'll notice that they're happy. They feel unburdened. They're liberated. Isha vasyam idang sarvam yat kincha jagatyam jagat tena tyaktena bhunjita magrita kasisudanam. The ancient Sri Upanishad, this knowledge has been around for thousands of years. It says, here's the key to happiness in life. Consider everything in the world as paraphernalia to be used in the service of Ishvara. Who's that? The Supreme Controller, Krishna. And whatever is set aside as your quota, which comes to you naturally, you use that for your own vitality so you can go on with your practice of spiritual life. If you live like that, says the Sri Upanishad, then kurvane viha karmani jijivishek shatam samaha evam tvai nanyate tosti means that you can live an unburdened life. You can live for 100 years and you'll never feel anxiety because you're giving everything to Krishna. This is unique to the bhakti yoga process because we use our senses in service to Krishna. That's what our senses are meant for. And therefore, the great teacher Rupa Goswami quotes, Sarvapadiva nirmuktam tat pratvena nirmalam rishikena rishikesha sevanam bhaktir. There's a way in which when we use our senses in service to Krishna's senses, he's called Rishikesh, he's the master of our senses. If we please his senses, then we become purified and happy by engaging our senses in service. So this is the first unique quality of bhakti, by which devotees don't even want liberation from the material world, because by this first element and the next two, they're satisfied and liberated, even while in this world. You got a cryptic message and now the room is moving. It's a Rubik's Cube. What's the first tenet of bhakti? That is, qualifies one to be unburdened and satisfied to the point that one doesn't even want escape from the material world. Okay, 3 people passed. Everybody else, I'm going to say the whole thing again. You ready? Yes. Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He has senses, and therefore we can serve him. You can't serve the air. The air doesn't accept anything, nor does it reciprocate, but Krishna does, because he's the supreme sentient being. And sentient means he's sensitive, means also he has senses. So we can serve his senses, and we can perceive his response. And therefore, when we use our senses in his service, and we use everything that we have as paraphernalia to serve his senses, then we're unburdened. And Rupa Goswami says, those who are engaged in such service are not concerned with liberation, which means, get me out of here. Because iha yasya harir dasye karmana manasa gira nikila apyavastastu jivan mukta sa uchite. A person who's in service to the supreme acceptor of service, called bhoktaram, he can enjoy everything that we offer him. And he's not like your boss. And he's not like your cranky uncle or whoever it is who wasn't satisfied with whatever you brought him or her. Krishna accepts the offerings of those who present them to him in a mood of devotion. Service. The second, Rupa Goswami says, is beauty. We crave beauty. We can't live without it. The form of the word beauteous or beatitude means there's a stage of trance in our consciousness. When we see something beautiful, we become entranced by it. If you've ever seen a beautiful aspect of nature, have you ever? That caught you so much that you stood in awe. Maybe you saw the ocean and the sun going down. Maybe you saw a rainbow. We saw a rainbow. Took a picture of it a few weeks ago when we escaped. And we stood in awe of the beautiful colors. We couldn't take our eyes off it. And you could see the nuance of colors, one to the next. Perfect palette. And we thought, when we stopped near a stream and we were watching the sun come down and there was steam coming out of some of the wood there because it was the morning sun, and there were living entities everywhere who were living in that natural environment. We could stand there for half an hour, 45 minutes, an hour. We were not eager to leave because we were captured by the beauty. And in the Bhagavad-gītā, Krishna describes how punyo ganda prativyam cha tejas chasmi vipavaso jivanam sarvabhuteshu tapas chasmi tapashvishu bijam mam sarvabhutanam vidiparta sanatanam buddhir buddhimantam asmi tejas vidamaham. Very good. That all the phenomena we see in the material world, the phenomena we see here in the material world, he said, these are all representations of my beauty, my grandeur. Then he gives the superlatives in the 10th chapter of the Bhagavad-gītā. All those I was mentioning, the seed. You watch how the seed, it grows into a beautiful plant, flower. It's captivating. Or the strength of the strong. People like to see strong people and notice their prowess. And punyoganda, when you smell the fragrance of the earth, right after the first rain, you know that smell? Oh, you're taken away by that. It's a beauteous experience. And then he talks about the grandeur of the material world, his opulences here in this world, in the 10th chapter of the Bhagavad-gītā. Of mountains I am Meru, of immovable things I am the? Yeah. Of aquatics I am? Yeah, if you think of any one of these opulences in the world, you'll stop and observe. People sometimes go to zoos to observe, see the lion. I hope it roars. I'm going to hear it roar. Or they'll see the ocean or huge mountains, and they're taken aback by it. The whole world, in fact, once when we were in a spot where there was no light whatsoever, no moon and no cities nearby, stepped out of the car and the stars were so bright, I was almost knocked on my back. I had an existential moment thinking, oh, I'm in a universe I forgot, and look at all these planets that abound. There's a universal form of the Lord described in the Bhagavad-gītā and the Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam. But beyond that, there's the original beauty of the Supreme Personality of God himself. It's so captivating that he's known as Kṛṣṇa. Means he captivates everyone. And there was a song written by George Harrison many years ago, There's Something in the Way she moves. And actually, it was originally in the way he moves, but the producers thought, well, that won't fly. He was talking about Krishna. That attracts me like no other lover. And he was just singing a song. And there are myriad songs, not just from one who heard about Krishna from someone else, but you go to the great ācāryas and poets, and they'll want to write the choicest poetry. That's why Krishna is called uttama-śloka. Everyone wants to write something to try to describe the limit of Krishna's beauty, and they never get to that point of describing the limit because it's unlimited. It's always becoming more beautiful and more captivating. And without this beauty, we're relegated to the reflection of beauty in the material world. Whatever natural scene we see, if you've ever noticed, it can't completely satisfy the heart. It doesn't reciprocate. There's a verisimilitude. It's the reflection of reality, and therefore we're attracted to it, and it's breathtaking for a moment, but you can't keep it within you. It doesn't reciprocate with you. But Krishna's beauty, because his beauty, his opulence is non-different from himself, by seeing Krishna, the ultimate object for meditation, Deyam Sada, one can continuously, says the Bhagavatam, look at Krishna's beauty and you'll never get tired of it. Other scenes you might get used to. If you've seen the ocean enough times, then you think, oh, I'm going to go somewhere else. Seen enough sunsets, you forget about it. It's like, oh, that's the sun's getting in my eyes. Close the curtains. Let's watch TV. The Bhagavatam says that everyone's looking for that beauty everywhere. There's never a time we're satisfied by it until we see Krishna, who's the source of all beauty. And this is what's available through Bhakti Yoga, is the beautiful form of Krishna and the descriptions of his beauty. And Rupa Goswami said this is the second element by which one doesn't even care about, one who has seen the beauty of Krishna and is pursuing the beauty of Krishna no longer cares about liberation. They're only addicted to that. I just want to see the beauty of Krishna. So the first one is? The second one is? And then the third, he says, the power of bhakti is taste. Taste for what? Hearing about Krishna's pastimes. Because we want to hear something. How many movies are there that Hollywood has produced? There's a lot? Thanks, Rifik. There's a lot. There's comedies. There's drama, action. How many car chases have you seen in your life? Come on, you can admit it. How many? These movies, for somebody who's hearing Krishna Lila, they become boring. And people get tired of movies. They binge watch for a while and then they walk around like zombies for a few weeks. And you can't keep watching the same movie. Maybe 5, 6, 7 times. Maybe sometimes there's a cult that grows around a certain movie and people watch it over and over again just for effect. But ultimately it gets tiresome and boring. The drama, the humor, and so forth. But in the Leela of Krishna, it has a special quality called Nitya Navana Vayamana, which means that no matter how many times you hear it, it's ever fresh. And the more you hear it, the more you enter into it, the more you have a taste for it. And it's this taste, says Rupa Goswami, and the pursuit of that taste, says Rupa Goswami, that allows the participant in the process of bhakti yoga to not be interested in liberation. As after all, in the Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, Kapila Dev says, is it too hot in here? He didn't say that, I'm saying. It's too hot in here. Please get some more air. Okay, it's not too hot, but get some air anyway. It doesn't have to be cold air, but it has to be genuine oxygen. And the description of taste is given in the Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam. Shruta guna matrena sarvamayu guhashaye manogatir avichina yata ganga ambusa budao. This is a description given by Kapila Dev when he says, you're getting a taste for hearing about Krishna when this phenomena occurs where when you hear, then you want to hear more, and there's nothing else that you want to hear the way you want to hear this, and your mind follows the sound, the description of Krishna, and he gives the metaphor that it's like the Ganges, the water of the Ganges, yata ganga ambusa ambudao. It means it just flows, and it can't be stopped by anything. So when your mind comes to that point by hearing about Krishna, then you don't care about liberation. You're completely satisfied. So Rupa Goswami says, these are the three benefits that one gets from practicing bhakti yoga. You can be a jnani and deconstruct the universe and try to find out the difference between you and the material world. You, the soul, in the material world. You can actually even take to a life of selfless giving, he says. He says? Well, Narada says. He says, Naishkarmyam, he tells Vyasadeva, Naishkarmyam apyachuta bhava varjitam nashobhati jnanalam niranjanam. He says that you may become self-realized and understand that you're different from the body, that you're part of the Supreme. But if you don't have these three things, service to the Supreme, the beauty of the Supreme, personality, and number three, a taste for hearing about the activities. He says if you don't have these three things, naishkarmyam apyachuta bhava varjitam nashobhate jnanam, he said, it's not going to attract you enough that you are not interested in the material world again, and you'll revert back to the reflection, and you'll stay in the illusory energy of the material world. Naishkarmyam apyachuta bhava varjitam, because what we all seek, says Narada Muni to Vyasadeva, is achuta bhava. What did he say we seek? Achuta bhava. It means the emotion that we feel when we see how beautiful God is. The emotion we feel when we see that everywhere there's service to God available. And when we see His form, and when we get a taste for hearing about Him. These three elements are achuta bhava. So, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu made these the primary features of bhakti, but he gave them a practicality, and that is anyone can be in contact with service, with beauty, and with hearing about the lila, which means activities that are not connected to the material world. They're activities in the spiritual world. He said, we're all seeking these three things, but how will we achieve them? Well, one is by chanting the names of Krishna, because the name of Krishna and Krishna himself are exactly the same. All the qualities, the forms, the pastimes, the beauty, everything we're looking for is there within the name. And then he also recommended that one hear Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, because Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam contains the lila or the pastimes of Krishna, as described again by Narada Muni. He says that this is the Bhagavatam, not from this material world, it's from the spiritual world. And just by hearing it on a regular basis, then you'll flip over towards the spiritual world. It'll flip your orientation from the material world to the spiritual world, called viplava. Tadvag visargo janataga viplavo, yasmin pratishlokam abadyavatyapi. Namanyanantasya shonkitanya shrinvanti gayanti gridanti sadhava. He says, therefore, people who are smart, if you're smart, raise your hand. It's hard. You guys are a hard crowd, I'll tell you. Work with me, people. So, he says, smart people, knowing this, these three elements, which are? They hear the Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam very deliberately, regularly. They hear it nityam bhagavata seva every day. They never miss it because they know the only way to attain perfection in life and to fulfill the heart's desire, called the bhishta doham, is to enact these three. And it all gets enacted by hearing the Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, chanting Hare Krishna. Wait, there's more. Then we have these temples. We have thousands of them all over the world. What's inside our temple? Krishna. The form of Krishna is called archa. So some people say, well, God's everywhere. Why not? Why do you have a temple for him? And we just say, well, why not? If he's everywhere, he's also in the temple, right? So Krishna has a form, and one can see that form when it's rendered in marble, and stone, or wood, or paint, or jewels, or even within the mind. And when one comes on a regular basis and faces the deity and sees the beauty of the deity who's being worshipped in the temple, there's a natural invocation of this sense of love in the heart that awakens, and attraction to the form of Krishna. You can see the form of Krishna. On Janmashtami, I'm usually sitting right over there where you are under that picture. And I can see everybody coming through here. 15,000 people came here for Janmashtami. How'd you fit them all? I don't know. What happened? But they were here because there was 15,000 plates of prasadam gone. They come through here, and I watch every one of them come through the door from that point of view, and every one of them sees Krishna, and their demeanor changes. If you don't have that, you have to scroll all day long. That's the result. If you don't walk through the door and see the beauty of Krishna's form, you have to scroll all day long. And you can't even watch the whole thing. Even when it's 10 seconds, you can only watch 2 seconds of it. That's what you have to do if you don't see the form of Krishna. So that's one of the offerings of the International Society for Krishna Consciousness, is the presentation of Krishna in his original form in an authorized process called archa. And when anyone comes here, he or she is free to sit right here and just look at the deity. You don't have to go to work, and we won't tell your boss that you have your laptop open and you're actually looking at the deity, not at your laptop. We don't tell anybody. Where are you, Sundar? I know he does it. And any temple I visit around the world, especially Chicago, because Kishore, the people of Chicago, they can't go to work without stopping at the temple and sitting down, and they just sit there. They don't do anything. I don't see them chanting. They're just looking. They'll get their kids. They sit, you look. Because they're seeing Kishore. That's bhakti yoga. You just go see the beauty of Krishna's form. You have to. Otherwise, you got to scroll. So, here at the Hare Krishna temple, we offer food to the deity, and then that food becomes sacred food because we offered it to Krishna out of service. He has senses. We use our senses to cook it, but we didn't cook it for our senses. We cooked it for Krishna's senses. And after Krishna eats that prasadam, and he does eat it because he says in the Bhagavad-gītā that if you offer me something with love and devotion, then I'll accept it. I'll eat it. And he says He's so eager to take our offerings that even if you accidentally, instead of cooking something for Krishna, you give him a flower, he'll eat that too. Because he eats the love by which we give it to him. That goes on in a Hare Krishna temple. That's unique. You don't find that elsewhere. So when you come to the process of Bhakti Yoga, and that's what we're facilitating here, you get every opportunity for service. You get every opportunity to see Krishna's beauty, and you get every opportunity to hear about Krishna's activities and pastimes. And of course, you can do it in your own home too. You can also have a picture of Krishna in your house. It's the same thing as having the deity, no difference. And you can offer your food to that picture. You can also chant Hare Krishna in your house. You can also hear Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam in your house. And that's what Lord Chaitanya advocated. So our Hare Krishna movement is philosophically grounded, and it's also aesthetically the topmost process for enjoying beauty and enjoying the reciprocation of love that everyone's looking for. San Francisco, we have the MoMA, the Museum of Modern Art. We have Natural History Museum. We have, what other museums do we have? Legion of Honor. Many nice museums. Which have them? I didn't catch that one. The Ice Cream Museum. There's an aeronautical museum on our way home on the 101 freeway right before you get to Burlingame. That's why everyone's looking around for something nice. They want to see something beautiful. If you go to a museum, you'll feel slightly satisfied. Much better than seeing the square buildings like Costco, Home Depot. No customer service. And they're just boxes. And inside the boxes, there's huge boxes of stuff. And nowadays, when you go shopping, they don't even want to talk to you. They just talk to that machine. Just scan it yourself. When you get gas, people used to come up whistling. Do, 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 do. Can I wash your windows for you? And now it's just like, do it yourself, man. We don't want to talk to you. If you got money, we'll talk to you. But other than that, just put your card on the thing, get out of here. The material world's become so impersonal because they don't have these three things. There's no beauty in the material world. The natural beauty is just a reflection of Krishna's beauty. And if we see it in relationship to Krishna, we'll feel a little satisfied, but we need the direct thing. We have to look right into Krishna's eyes, and we have to feel his reciprocation. We also have to hear. We have to hear the poetical descriptions of Krishna in the spiritual world in order to be attracted to go there. Otherwise, we have to go to Hawaii. You have to. You're obligated to. You have to go to Hawaii unless you hear the Leela of Krishna. So we invite everybody to take to this life. Bhakti Yoga is the life. It's a life of complete absorption and happiness. Tvayam bhujakshakila sattvadamni samadhina deshita. Chaitasike. The consciousness can be captured by the source of all beauty. Samadhina veshita chaitasike. The chaitas. Our consciousness wants beauty. We don't want stuff that changes. We want something that satisfies the soul, and only Krishna can do that. And we want to feel the full absorption in something worthwhile only by service to Bhoktaram, the person who can accept all our service. Can we become happy? And we want to hear something. You go through the radio. Half of them you can't hear anyway, but you just try scrolling through. You're going to hate all of it. Don't listen to the news. You wait a while. maybe 10 years, maybe 20, maybe 50, 100. Don't listen. Then you might hear so many stations, you just keep scrolling and you'll go like, nope, nope, nope. Your mind's going, nope, nope, nope. Then you put on a CD. I have a CD, you don't. It's an old car. And then I heard that a million times. I can't hear that. What do you want to hear? Finally, if you hear Bhagavad-gītā, you go like, oh, okay. This I can listen to. You hear Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, this I can listen to. So this is a place where we're gathering our energies so that we can use them properly. And when we have this experience for ourselves, we'll think, why did I waste so much time? When we see actual beauty, we'll think, why did I look anywhere else? And when we feel the compelling nature of Krishna's service, we don't have time for anything else. And Krishna in the Bhagavad-gītā says, Ananyas chintayanto mam ye jana paripasade tesham nityabdhyuktanam yoga kshemam bahamyaham. He says, if you get to this stage in your life, which doesn't take that much, he says, don't worry about the rest of your life. I'm going to come and personally take care of you. Don't spend your life in anxiety, just trying to maintain yourself when all the birds are getting free room and board outside in the trees, the ants are all getting fed, and the squirrels get a free coat every winter time. Don't worry about it. Just serve me, Krishna says. And then he ends the Bhagavad-gītā by saying, Sarva dharman parityaja mamekam sharanam braja aham tvam sarva papebhyo ma suchaha. And it's in every scripture, actually, of the world. If you search it out, you'll find every prophet, every incarnation, they all say, don't worry, just worship me and don't worry. So we're offering something to the world that is not available anywhere else. Bhakti is the topmost of all practices of yoga. And it's the only one that has these three elements that will completely satisfy the soul. Om Tat Sat. That means the end. Hare Krishna. So, a very important aspect of Bhakti Yoga is community. We need friends. Boy, do we need friends. And we need loving exchanges with friends. So when you have friends who are on the spiritual path, and you can exchange gifts, and you can break bread together, and you can talk, and feel open to express how you're feeling, what you're going through. And those who are also on the spiritual path can help you process it. And in this way, we feel naturally satisfied. We don't want to sit in a cave. And we can't deny the fact that we need society and we need friendship and love. But when we find friendship, when we find love in the association of others who are on the spiritual path, it doesn't mean we ignore other people either. It just means we're selective in who we give our hearts to, who we eat with most of the time, and so forth. When we have that, then we'll also feel supremely satisfied. So, for the next couple of minutes, if you'll indulge me, I'd like you to find somebody here who you haven't met yet. And we're keeping track because we watch everything on the film. And we run the film afterwards. And if you go out for prasadam and you talk to somebody you already know, well, we won't go that far. But please try to make an acquaintance in the next 5 minutes with somebody you haven't met before. So we're just going to stand up and just introduce yourself, say where you're from. Oh, you know what to do. So just find somebody you haven't met before and make a new friend, and we'll meet you back here in 5 minutes. Does that sound like a plan? Yes. And I'm going to be watching the film, so don't talk to your friends. Talk to somebody you don't know. On your mark, get set, go. Meet your new friend, new friends. So now we have the main feature of the day, which is the Hare Krishna dance party. In the Hare Krishna dance party, we dance it out of sense of devotion for Krishna. And you can put your hands in the air when you feel like it, and you can sway, and you can move. This is authorized. Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu taught chanting, dancing, and then feasting. So we're going to get up and roll this carpet up. We're going to move all the asanas and put them in that beautiful box back there. And then we can all assemble here on the dance floor. It's made out of wood. It's very forgiving to the feet. So feel free to open your heart to Krishna and put your hands high in the air and call out his holy names, okay? We'll see you back here in about 2 minutes. Hare Krishna.